Hello again, and thank you for staying with us through this journey of listening, questioning, and reimagining. In our final episode, we turn the microphone toward two women at the heart of this initiative. Charlotte Nachtsheim, the organizer of the Symposium, and Mélanie Froehly, the managing director of zamus. What inspired this bold move to host Decolonization Symposium in an early music festival? What challenges and hopes accompanied it? And how can institutions lead change with integrity and care?
I'm Charlotte, and at the moment I'm working at zamus as a project assistant. I'm also a singer. I'm also doing early music.
What was the topic for this edition? And maybe you could also highlight on how did you choose this topic?
This year, the symposium was titled Creating New Spaces, Approaches to Colonial Heritage in Early Music. I think the idea to talk about, colonial heritage and how it's still shaping early music making today, but then also decolonial approaches to this. I think this idea it came out of a process, because already last year the symposium was talking about historically rooted inequalities. Last year we were talking about gender and women in early music. But kind of in dealing with these topics, we also realized that, gender is like one aspect of it. But of course there are so many more forms of discrimination and privilege, also in the field of early music. We wanted to broaden our perspectives also and to learn about power mechanisms. So we decided to move on to decolonialism and colonial heritage for this year's topic.
What does colonialism and decolonialism mean within the frame of early music?
That's a good question, because I think that is partly also what we wanted to find out with the symposium. I mean, of course, we already had an idea. Otherwise, we wouldn't have chosen the topic. Just from a historical perspective, so obviously the Renaissance, which we also heard again today in the talks, it's where like the colonial powers of the modern world actually started growing, and it's really a time where there are roots for so many forms of colonialism. And so the music that we're dealing with is sort of embedded in a colonial history. And then beside the fact that early music is embedded in the colonial history of its own time, there's also a current dimension. So we can ask who is represented in the early music and classical music scene nowadays, in what way, and who isn't. And as we wanted to learn and talk about these various topics, the symposium gathered different voices and perspectives. So musicians, historians, and people working in different cultural fields shared their knowledge and then also came together in a joint discussion with each other and also with the audience. So to give you like a quick overview of the topics and speakers that we heard, with Rahab and Jerry, we learned about how colonial thinking shaped and still shapes arts and aesthetics, and also what decolonial approaches can look like. Jorge Silva and Hugo de Rodas Sanchez both explored the origins and also the development of some early music repertoire in its colonial context. Dunia Favey talked about ways of rethinking boundaries, or actually rather connections, in early music. And Enemate Kühn and Leila Ercan introduced us to new ways of performing classical music today.
And as a singer, did it ever happen to you that with some texts, certain texts, maybe some Renaissance or Baroque texts, that you didn't want to perform them from stage because of their content?
I mean, I guess as a singer, it's also like, I guess it happens to you more often than if you play an instrument. I think there are different ways of dealing with it. So, I mean, different decisions, do you want to cut the piece? Do you want to change the text? Do you find some kind of way of performing it that you can sort of give it a subtext.
For me, the navigation point was in the talk given by Unia Verfe. She was putting into balance world music and, let's say, academic or early, let's say, classical music. She pointed out this disbalance with the world music, and that is kind of grouped into one big pile of musics, Asian, South American, whatever. It's in one kind of bubble.
Yeah, of course. I mean, already sort of making those categories tells us a lot about the way that we think about music.
Thank you very much, Charlotte.
Well, thank you. Thank you for coming here and being here.
After hearing from Charlotte about the vision and groundwork behind the symposium, we now shift perspectives to the artistic leadership of zamus. Mélanie Froehly shares how the decolonization theme was brought into this year's program and why these conversations belong at the heart of early music today.
My name is Mélanie Froehly. I'm from France and I now live in Cologne in Germany. I've been working for zamus since 2018, and before that I worked with different orchestras and ensembles in both France and Germany. I moved to Cologne especially for zamus because for me it's a very special organization in the cultural field. We have around 200 members, so we really have to find ways to make decisions together as a community, and I really like this part of our job. The center was also founded as a space to talk about issues in the early music field, so political questions are naturally part of our work. We organize a festival and concert, but we also offer workshops on musicological and management topics, as well as meeting for our musicians, for example. For me, it's really important to stay connected with both our members and our audience to understand what we can do from our position, like how can we improve diversity in our daily work, or how can we make everyone feel welcome at our concerts, or how can we support musicians in their careers. So I think at the end of the day, it's about asking how can we help make society a better place, starting from early music.
And how did you come to the idea of organizing a symposium? And how did you choose the people that you will invite? What was the strategy?
So for this symposium, the starting point was really our discussions with our members. We also felt that this kind of topic needs a lot of visibility. That's why we decided to include it in the festival, because during the festival we have many people coming to us and there's already interest in the symposium that happens alongside the concerts. Historically informed practice means reflecting on the historical context and the practices of the original period. So for me, in that sense, a symposium is really just the other side of a concert. Both are essential to understanding and sharing early music. For us, it's clear that it's not just about music and performances, it's also about engaging with current political and cultural issues We want to address a range of topics. And when we started preparing the symposium together with Midori Seiler and Charlotte Nachtsheim, we also realized that there still is a big lack of knowledge in this area. For example, we talked about terms like cultural appropriation and decolonisation in the context of early music, and we noticed that these concepts aren't always clearly understood. And of course, it's really difficult to have a constructive conversation if we don't define first what we are talking about and agreed on the terms.
Maybe you could tell about organization of the symposium. How do you structure it as an organizer, let's say?
Yes, I think it's always a bit difficult because at the beginning we have a lot of different ideas, and then we have to make a choice and decide what would bring this topic on the point. First of all, we have to explain what we are speaking about. So I think that is always the first step in order to have a good discussion about the problem, because we need to speak about the same thing and understand the same things. And then we always try to speak about what is the current situation in the early music field and what are the current problem. And then we try to go the step between this problem and the music that we are doing. And then, yes, there is a lot of questions, there is a lot of curiosity. We also have decided that we will give next year a bit more space for the exchange because, yes, there was a lot of different questions.
So you are planning to organize a symposium next year as well? You're planning to do it yearly, let's say, at every festival edition?
I think there is not a lot of festivals who are doing a symposium in the middle of it. But for us, as I say, the zamus is not only a concert organizer, but we are also always asking ourselves not only what we can show to the audience, but also what we can do for the musician, or how can we be relevant for the society. So that means you always have to question yourself.
Where did you find this motivation to think about the project that you organize with such a noble goal to help the society to understand and to talk about these very complicated questions?
I think for me it's something like with 22 I was finished with my master and I started to work for this French Baroque orchestra, and I'm really thankful for this time there because it was really, I learned a lot. It was a fantastic time. I've seen all Europe through this ensemble, but at the same time, I think for me, we toured extensively, sometimes with 50 times the St. John Passion, then 10 times the Christmas oratorio, and then it was a lot of this concert. We always had some small concert with a lot of intellectual input, I would say, but there was also a lot of this big project. And for me at the beginning, it was something like a dream. Oh, we will be to the big places and we will do art and it will be great. At some point, it was only completely senseless for me. This time it was really for me a big problem. And then you have some big soloists who are really paid a lot, and most of the time you have musicians who are really getting bad fees. I think it was really at some point that I had to think about what will I be, what will I do, and at this moment I discovered the zamus. And I think for me it was something like, okay, I will give a last chance to culture. I think it's art what will help us overcome a lot of problems. So yes, I could connect with the music again for me.
For the upcoming edition of the Symposium, of the festival, I don't know how much you can reveal.
No, I think there is a lot of different topics that we want to address. So I cannot say 100% that will be this subject, but there are a lot of questions that we want to ask because, for example, in Germany, in the last 2 years, there was a lot of question about musician fees. And it was really, really, really a big discussion. And for the first time, a lot of people were thinking about it. And most of the people, city, region, Bund, all said, yes, there is a problem with the musician fee. After this, there was something like, at the beginning of this year, a lot of cuts in the cultural funding. So it was something like, oh, we all acknowledge that there is a really big problem with this fee, and at the same time, we are cutting the cultural funding. And after this big discussion, we are in the situation where we are all asking ourselves, okay, how does it goes, or what are we doing with these completely two different statements? There is a problem with the fee and there is less money for the future. So what are we doing as an organizer? Are we just doing less concert, or how can we find a solution about this? A second part of this problem is always a situation where organizers are giving the responsibility to find more money. We don't want to put a big membership. We have a really, really low membership in the zamus, and we want to keep it like this because we want a lot of musicians to be able to be part of it. But at the same time, we have city, region who are saying us, oh, you have to get your own money. You have to make your own money. And then the second idea about doing more money is to put higher ticket prices. Yes. At the moment, we have low ticket price. Sometimes for the people, it's nevertheless a big amount of money. So we are always trying to find a balance between some association in Cologne who are giving free tickets to some people, and ticket price can help us do our job as good as possible. But I think it's also a big discussion about what is our role in this combination, in this financial situation, and not about only fee, but how this system work together with musicians, big concert halls, small festival organizer, audience who is also struggling with financial difficulties. Yes, I think that would be a good idea for next year.
It's a wonderful topic to exchange on. As our series comes to a close, we are left not with answers, but with openings. Openings for dialogue, for discomfort, for transformation, and most of all, for connection. Thank you for listening to this mini-series in partnership with zamus. I'm Darina Blogina, and this has been Insight Reading Enlightenment, Early Music Podcast. Please check the description for links, references, and ways to support this work. Let's keep the conversation going.